From this unforgiving place to that vague and distant void, where the sunlight splits the eye. Life is cruel, life is tough, life is crazy, then it all turns to dust. We let them out, we let them in. Will you ever know when it's the tipping point, the tipping point, the tipping point, the tipping point? So who's that ghost knocking at my door? You know. What's that shape climbing over my wall? You know. So who's that ghost knocking at my door?
They're going to be knackered. It's quite a widespread tour. And they come to the UK on the 2nd of July. They do Telford on the 1st of July. And Longleat is the closest one to the Bath area. Buckinghamshire, July the 5th. Then Newcastle, Roxburgh, Lytham Festival, Derby, Leeds, Warwick, Scarborough, New Milton, Canterbury, Hove, Cardiff, Hatfield and Exeter, Powdram Castle. And that's Tipping Point, of course. Now, I'm going to ask him if he can hear me, because throughout all of that, the way our desk works, we could see each other, we couldn't hear each other. David Gray, can you hear me?
I can, hello.
Oh, wow, look at that. It's like you're in the next room. Can I congratulate you on your kitchen? It's delightful.
Yeah, you're getting a sneak peek of my house, which
I love it.
It's unusual. I'm trying to make sure I don't get interrupted. That's the wonders of working from home.
Have you jumped on one of your children's Zooms?
Well, no, it's just the weird way that all this interconnected technology, family stuff goes completely haywire. I'm now called Florence, which is very on trend.
It is, and I didn't want to call you Florence, but I'm glad you said it, so I didn't have to. It's so nice to meet and talk with you, and I'm going to say again, the last time I worked with you, just 22 years ago, and I'm not going to try and embarrass you. If you don't remember it, it's fine, because a lot of things has happened in that time. But you came to Bristol and I was presenting a TV show on HTV, and we got you in the studio it was a program called The Pleasure Guide. And the director wanted to do something more interesting. So we had you and the piano or keyboard sat up there, and then lots of videos in loads of TV screens all around of This Year's Love playing around you.
Right.
That's the first time I'd heard of you or your stuff. So you did This Year's Love. And then the next time I met you was backstage at Top of the Pops when I was working at Radio 1 and 5 Live as an entertainment correspondent. And I just remember one of the last things I asked you was, how do you feel New Labour's doing? That was my last question to you. And you said, I'm not happy with them. And you had a bit of a rant about how New Labour had done this is in about the year 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
And that was,
right.
Yeah. But since then,
little did I know. I mean, don't get me started now. Don't even ask me the question if you don't dare to.
I won't ask you about the last 20 years. I just want to. But we've had, since I last spoke to you and met you, David, we've had Twitter, we've had social media, we've had conservatives. So much has gone on in the world. And your recent tweet, in the process of finishing off, I like this, in the process of finishing off a new song for a Curlew-inspired compilation album funded by the RSPB. The song's titled The Ark, and I'll perform it for the first time at the Networks for Nature event in Bath on November the 20th. That's lovely. Let's get straight into that. Why are you coming here, and why are you inspired by these birds? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always been very keen on the natural world, just from year dot. So I've never been like a proper bird watcher. I don't travel around the country when something rare comes in. It's just whatever crosses my path, what I see in the garden when I go and walk the dog. But yeah, the curlew is a kind of iconic bird, and a bird with a voice that you'll never forget. So I do think it's part of the poetry and mystery of my life and my attachment to this land. And they've been here a long time before we were. It's such a big part of our, as I say, the poetic mystery that is these islands, and they're very much under threat. I hadn't appreciated until my daughter bought me the Curlew Moon book by Mary Colwell, who's going to be interviewing me for the Nature for Networks performance that I didn't realize just how bad it was. And reading the stats just shocked me into action. So I thought, enough of this sort of traveling around the world doing my thing. I need to sort of start getting a bit involved. And you realize that I think we've passed the tipping point, to quote the last band that you had on. I think we're approaching end game. I think that the curlew will be gone soon, and that's just a fact. For most of the country, it needs incredible reversals and cooperation. It needs the hunting and farming lobbies to just wake up and smell the coffee and just get off their high horse and start making some really significant changes. Obviously, this needs to be government-led, but there's a huge problem. It's a mosaic of different competing interests and issues, and the curlew is being squeezed out of our lives. And as I say, it's a bird of majesty and wonder.
It's a prism. It's a prism through which you're talking by describing a much greater issue, which coincidentally to this conversation between you and me today is that at this moment, teetering on the point of either breakthrough or failure with COP26 in Glasgow. And you're just picking one aspect of that through a bird, which we could lose forever, and there's many animals and many birds and so many species that we're finding are going extinct and are likely to go extinct. But is the curlew really on the edge? Is that one of many birds in this country that are, again, near that point?
I think it depends which part of the country you look at. But I think if current rates of decline, I think we'll see it gone from Wales. So dropping from a breeding population of thousands of pairs, within just our lifetimes to nothing. I think that's going to happen in the next decade. In Ireland, it may already be too late. It's such a catastrophic declines there. And there was a huge amount of curlews breeding there.
Oh, so they might be gone from Ireland already? Gosh.
Virtually gone, 98% decline. So, and it's in the south of England, in places like Dartmoor and sort of strongholds that it's had here, it's virtually gone from most of those places. It's hanging on in a few spots.
Yeah.
But I mean, we live in one of the most nature deprived countries on earth. And if you took Scotland out of the British picture, it would look even worse.
This is the stark factor here, isn't it? That we think that we're very nature loving. And of course, Britain's made up of millions of animal lovers. But at the same time, we're squeezing these creatures out. If you've just joined us, it's 25 to 3. It's Radio Bath, and I'm speaking with the international best-selling musician and singer-songwriter David Gray, live, who joins me now from his home. I presume you're in somewhere like London?
I am, yes, somewhere like London.
Somewhere like London.
Exactly like London.
I don't want to give away where you live.
Well, London's quite big. You won't find me based on that. So.
They could go to the end of the M4. Where's David Gray then?
There's probably a load of irate farmers heading towards me, just from what I've just said. No.
When you come down to Bath next week and you're going to be doing this talk with Mary Colwell, and I have to thank Mary for hooking us up with you. It's because of Mary that we got to speak to you. What will the evening be about, and will you be reflecting some of this discussion when you talk with her, as well as mixing that with music? Because I know you're playing live as well. So tell us a bit about the format for the evening.
If I don't want to come across as too heavy, but it is heavy, and it's hard not to feel an acute sense of desperation. So that will definitely be a part of our conversation. But in chief, the conversation is about how my work relates to and is born out of my experience of nature and my feeling for nature. So it's looking at songs and bits of writing, and I'll be playing songs to illustrate the sort of thing, because there's been a bit of a shift. It's always been there, but I think since I bought a house out in the countryside on a nature reserve up in Norfolk about 20 years ago, I've had a much more experience of being out in the wild, and I've found that all that quality time is sort of fed into my work more and more and more. So it's something that's ongoing, and it's sort of growing exponentially as my appreciation of nature increases. So I find that metaphors and music spring from it more readily, and so I can't get enough of it.
Will you be playing a track inspired by this as well? And can you reveal anything more about the song, the Ark?
I think
the Ark and I
think as well as the conversational part of the evening, I will be playing 4 or 5 songs And this will be my first public performance in 2 years because COVID sort of wrecked our touring plans. So we're now in some Heathrow Airport like holding pattern with like, I've had a record out since this tour was supposed to happen. So I've got 2 tours waiting to happen, sort of circling around me. So that will happen next year. It'll be my first gig of sorts. So I'm really excited about that. It's always a big deal to premiere a new piece of music. So I've been asked to write this piece. It's not always easy to write without being corny directly about a subject.
Yeah,
but
that
I've
must
done
be
my
difficult to
best.
do it to order. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've done my best to take a personal perspective, and that piece of music is called The Ark. I've finished it. In fact, I just finished it yesterday in the studio.
Wow. Oh, wow.
It's all ready to go now. Finally,
I'd love a copy to play of that at some point if we can.
well, I mean, we'll have to. That's where it gets a little complicated because I'm not sure how the RSPB relationship works exactly, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind you getting a copy to play.
At some point, yeah.
It's got to be delivered to them, and the idea is to obviously raise awareness and raise funds.
And they get the exclusive on that as well, and they can raise money by selling it on.
I'm sure it wouldn't be a problem. So if anyone wants to play the song, I'd be very, very pleased for them to do so.
Where can people do you know where people will access the song? Will it be on the if they can't go to the gig because it's oversubscribed next Saturday, which I'm sure it's at Swithin's Church in Bath? Of course, that will be a sellout. The RSPB will that be on their website or your website?
Well, I'm sure we're going to film the event, and perhaps a version of the song will be put up online at some point with the blessing of the RSPB and Merlin Driver, who's the artist who's organising the whole thing. So he's trying to pull all the pieces together. It's complicated. So
that sounds like that's your Facebook status, which didn't exist the last time we spoke. David, right. I'm just going to take a track because you had a new album out this year called Skellig.
I did,
and I want to draw people to that. And it's got a picture of a fish on the front. Is some of this nature inspired? This album?
I think it has the presence of nature is never far away. So for the opening line of the whole album is, oh, that the song I'm singing was an ocean wide. So it has a kind of whale idea that begins the whole album. It's a very quiet, slow, intimate record that's full of natural references. So here we go.
We'll talk some more in a minute.
Oh, that the song I'm singing was an ocean wide. Let the word I'm bringing reaches over to the other side. You try to burning vessel out on a pitch black wave, chewing the bone and gristle when it's the flesh of love we crave. When the light starts dancing, but you can't run. You have a way round the world for the truth can get its trousers off. In a nightclub mirror, caught the mirror's glimpse. My pre-human spirit frozen like a deer in the headlights, till it just to a far from king. When illusion shatters, see the courage everywhere, everywhere.
It's beautiful, and I'd love to play much more, but it's a soundtrack to our conversation as well. I'm talking with David Gray, the multi-award-winning, talented singer-songwriter of the last 20 years, and that is a track called Skellig, from the album Skellig, which came out this year. Who's the vocalist on that with you as well, David?
There was 6 of us singing together.
Lovely.
The whole album was very much about this kind of choral intimacy. So we gathered around me and the piano, or me and the guitar, and everything was done in this very delicate way. So singing live, old school.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was a real thrill to make, and I'm very pleased with the whole thing. It came out, earlier this year. We sort of rushed it out. It felt like a record that was good for the sort of lockdown limbo, and it proved to be so, I think.
Certainly. And will you tour it when you hopefully go back out on tour next year? Will you feature tracks from it with these people?
I think when we tour this record after the White Ladder kerfuffle, which will be next sort of spring, summer, into the end of the year. After that, as soon as that's done, I'll be putting tickets on sale for this. This will be very much its own thing. So
Right.
it won't be that, I won't be mixing up with Babylon. We'll play smaller venues. It'll be about this choral experience. So I'll get them all back together. There'll be 7 of us singing, and with the cello and piano and guitar, and a very simple but wide open space. It will be really special. We've already done some shows on it prior to making the record, which is one of the reasons the record was made, and they were just some of the best shows I've ever played. So
Sounds lovely.
I'm really excited about that, and that's somewhere further down the line.
Fair enough. Now, I imagine that it would have been 20 years since White Ladder, which is why there would have been plans to go out, but that's been thrown out. Is that it?
Well, it's actually technically 24 years now.
Oh, okay.
23. We sort of aggregated a 20-year anniversary for 2000 to 2020, because that's kind of the year it broke through around the world.
Yes.
It was actually released in 1998 in Ireland.
Now, isn't it? You mentioned Ireland earlier because of Curlews, and I was going to mention Ireland to you because isn't it one of the most successful albums in Ireland ever, regardless of the Cause and U2?
It is the most successful album in Irish chart history.
I think that's just amazing. It's absolutely stunning. So U2 can sing for their supper. The Cause, forget it. You are the #1 artist ever in Ireland.
That's that record is the biggest selling album. It's a preposterous statistic. I don't quite know what happened there, but God bless the Irish is all I can say.
Yeah, 100%. That was quite remarkable. And the other thing is as well, it's one of the biggest selling albums in the UK in the 21st century as well, isn't it, White Ladder?
That's right. Yeah.
I think it's in the top 10 there, done extraordinarily well, and one of the biggest in the North. I think it was a top 5 in the noughties. So you are right up there, Mr. Gray, and we are delighted to have you in our midst coming to Bath next week. We hope that maybe you could come back and do something. There are other very good venues here, so maybe you'll play here again. Do you know Bath that well?
I don't know it that well. I remember playing at Moles on my very first album, and Spiritualized were recording upstairs.
That's right. It was in the Moles recording studio.
And they sort of came down and suddenly emerged backstage as I came off stage. That's one of the things I remember, is having a sort of fag and a drink with them.
Very good. Moles is still there.
Back in the days when you could do that indoors.
That's right. Come out stinking of smoke.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen now. Before we go, and I could talk to you all afternoon, it's been great to have you on. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We are getting to the end of COP26 today. All of this is about, the event that you're doing with Mary Colwell next week, which is at St. Swithin's Church on November the 20th. That's a Saturday, where you will play some tracks there as well. It's about the environment, and it is called New Networks for Nature, celebrating the natural world. Lots of discussions and conversations, and presumably something about what comes out of tonight or tomorrow. What's been your take on the COP26 event for the last 2 weeks? And there's certainly been some pessimism this morning, but how do you feel about the way it's gone?
I personally find the whole thing meaningless. So I'm sure that it's very significant what they're going to agree compared to the business as normal. But the language, I can't make head nor tail of what it actually means. Net zero, it's just nonsense. You can't have consumerism driving us off a cliff over the next 50, 100 years. That's what we have to look at, our consumer lifestyles. But no one can say anything. So you can't say boo to a goose because we all have to pretend we can consume our way out of this. You can't. So we have to look at our lives, our holidays, the whole thing from top to bottom. And so until we do so, but unfortunately, the world is becoming more fractious and more complex, I think, politically. And it's more nationalist and populist in terms of the feeling that seems to be swelling in America, here, everywhere else. We've got the most idiotic government I've ever seen. The most low fiber.
Even worse than when I last spoke to you backstage.
They make the Blair Brown situation look absolutely wonderful. I mean, I think there's a moral sort of bankruptcy at the heart of this government. They're like some kind of throwback. I mean, they could solve our sort of financial issues by just auctioning tickets to throw things at Jacob Rees-Mogg. I'd personally put £5,000 down immediately for if he was in the stocks for a week. You know,
you do know. I mean, I can't say this because I'm a broadcaster and I have to be impartial. You can say what you like and you can be partial, and I've learned that in journalism over the years. That's why I love talking to David Gray. I always get a great nugget out of you. So Jacob Rees-Mogg is a local MP in our area here.
That's right, yeah.
He boarded Bath. He's nearly run me off off the road in his Rolls Royce. So down one of the lanes. So David, come down here. Let's get an event organised while we get some old fruit, and you can help to organise a chucking things at Jacob Rees-Mogg.
No, I'm just talking about rotten tomatoes and cabbages. Yeah, it's like a sort of crackerjack kind of celebration.
Let's go totally Tiswalls and crackerjack with you.
It's just an idea. I'm throwing it out there. You know, while they're thrashing the big stories out in COP26, that's my idea to raise a bit of money.
He could do it for children in need next week. We could do it as an event and a gig with you. David Gray, that's a brilliant idea. That's localism right there. The local MP. We can. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Have a great weekend. I'm going to play another track from you now. Sail Away, and maybe meet you again sometime. It would be fun.
Okay, I'll be in your area very soon. So
please, David Gray will be here next Saturday night, and personally, I can't wait. It's a breath of fresh air. Let's hope something comes out of COP, and you stay well and save the curlew.
Thank you.
Take care, sir. You're a good man. You're a good man doing good work. Thank you. Now, sail away.